Today is June 28th and I took a guru walking tour of Chinatown. Bernard, our tour guide, who grew up in Singapore, showed us a government housing project where his mother lives. It was bought in the 80s for $20,000. Today it is estimated to be worth $2 million. More information on government housing projects at the end of this video. Next we went upstairs to the Chinatown food complex and bought Singapore pancakes to go. Soon he took us to the Yu Hai Ching, also known as the Temple of Love, and explained the symbolism in the artwork and how this girl was praying for romance and finding a partner. Afterwards we sat down in a covered street area and enjoyed our pancake snack while listening to Bernard's life story. He explained the shop house architecture and how people lived back in the day. Up to 50 people would live in a shop house with one squat toilet next to the kitchen. You would be fined by the British if you did not flush the toilet. Our tour concluded on the iconic Fullerton Hotel, which was built in 1928 in a former general post office. Bernard informed us we were lucky to be here to see a rehearsal celebration of 60 years of independence. This included parades, flyovers, and a fireworks show, so I went back to Eunos for a few hours to feed Shibu before returning for the evening's festivities. Across the Anderson Bridge is the Victoria Concert Hall where the Singapore Symphony performs. The security was tight and hordes of people gathered early along the waterfront to view the fireworks show. I arrived around 6:30 and found a good spot. Here's about a minute of the show that will be seen the evening of August 9, 2025. Singapore has lots to celebrate over the past 60 years. Since its separation from Malaysia in 1965, Singapore has invested resources into housing, infrastructure, technology, education, foreign investment, and established a stable political and economic environment. It is a shared responsibility society with no free handouts and a low homeless rate. You can see by the progress this city-state has made that the status quo is not an option. Even the Prime Minister is constantly looking for upgrades to the already talented people that work for him. Singapore continues its efforts to be less reliant on other countries for its food, water, and other natural resources. Later in the video you will see the Singapore City Gallery where they illustrate long-range planning and smart city ideas and solicit input from citizens. As a tourist I find Singapore to be clean, comfortable, convenient, and a safe place to visit. It should be even better in the future. After some house cleaning and playing with Shibu, it was off to the Newton Hawker Center to try some barbecue stingray and a sugarcane juice for lunch. The fish was coated with chili sauce and cooked in a banana leaf to keep it moist. That gave me energy to continue my journey on the MRT to Orchard Road and across the street from the Raffles Hotel. At the Long Bar I tried the famous Singapore Sling, which is made with gin, cherry liqueur, Cointreau, Benedictine, fresh pineapple juice, fresh lime juice, grenadine, and a dash of Angostura bitters. Between 700 to 800 Singapore slings are made each day. People love the atmosphere and the ability to throw your peanut shells on the floor. I enjoyed talking to an Australian elderly couple and watched the bartenders mix and pour the drinks in rapid succession. I will briefly show the Long Bar upstairs at the end of my video. As the Australian woman was leaving, she left me a boomerang keychain as a gift. When I got back I found Shibu curled up in the bathroom sink. Today I walked around Raffles Place and admired the tall buildings. I remembered Wei, the tour guide, telling us how Singapore produces lab-grown food from building roofs, interior window spaces, and the like. He was recently invited to taste some lab-grown lobster. He said it looked like a slab of meat, but tasted like lobster. Another effort to take advantage of their buildings and limited agricultural land, and become less dependent on importing food from other countries. In addition to the tall buildings, Singapore has many public art pieces throughout the city. I was getting hungry and tried the Market Street Hawker Center. They mostly cater to business workers in the downtown area. For lunch I bought curry rice with a chicken cutlet, egg, and cabbage for $2. Such a deal. After walking around and taking some pictures it was time to enter the Capita Springs building for my 2:30 reservation to see One Arden, which is the world's highest food forest spanning 10,000 square feet across and 280 meters high. The food forest houses over 150 varieties of herbs, plants, fruits and vegetables. I am on the 51st floor and the views from above are spectacular. Soon it was time to purchase some takeaway roast pork and noodles and head back to the house and to give my weary feet a rest in the jacuzzi. It is July 1st and I am trying the oyster omelette at the Orchard Road shopping mall. This is where I bought my brother a shirt at the Japanese store Uniqlo. I ventured outside to take some pictures and noticed a long line of people buying ice cream sandwiches. Here's a look as I am waiting in line for a strawberry ice cream sandwich. It is served between rainbow-colored bread or two thin wafers. Next I took the MRT to the Botanic Gardens, which I was told is a must-see place. This is a huge park and the afternoon heat was a challenge. With portable fan, water, sunscreen, and a safari hat, I was able to walk about 30 to 40% of the park. There are plenty of signs, maps, and placards that explain the different areas. The Orchid Garden seemed to be one of the most popular areas. The guide was correct when he said it is a must-see place. I left the cartoon channel on for Shibu, and when I got home he was lounging on the sofa enjoying TV. This evening I made it to the far north part of Singapore to the Singapore Zoo for the night safari. You make your reservations online for this popular attraction. A tram takes you through a portion of the park starting at twilight. This 20-minute narrated ride gives an idea of things you will see on foot later in the evening. After a bite to eat I made it to the indoor amphitheater and the live show of Creatures of the Night. It was a great way to escape the downpour of rain. Here is a glimpse of the show.
There you go. Very nicely done. Now, alright. Now this is Asia, ladies and gentlemen. Indian crescent waterways can be found in Asia, places like India, Bangladesh, and even the Himalayas. Now he looks really big, right? Take a look at all of this. But I'm going to show you something that is really, really cool. Oh, do you see that? Thank you, take care, stay safe, and keep discovering the wild side of life. Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
After the show you are free to wander the paths dedicated to the night safari by foot. This was a relaxing and great way to see the animals close up. Around 11 p.m. I took a grab back to Yuno's. After a wonton soup and prawn cracker for lunch I noticed a place called the Chinatown Heritage Center. This museum recreated shop houses to chronicle the life of the Chinese in Singapore back in the 1950s. You really got the feel of the cramped spaces and the long hours of labor. Their workspace was also their living space. Jobs such as tailor, shoemaker, rickshaw drivers and doctor were featured with both personal and professional belongings. It was common for several rickshaw drivers to share one room and rotate their shifts between sleeping and driving. The wall displays in Museum Docent did a great job bringing the shophouse history and Singaporean lifestyle to life. Even though this was Chinatown, the neighborhood was a mix of Chinese, Malay, and Indian businesses, mosques, and temples. Here is a look inside. When I saw this cinema on wheels I equated that experience to the ice cream truck that used to come down our block when I was a child. Today is July 5th and I rode the double-decker bus to the Hong Lim Hawker Center for curry chicken bee hoon mee for lunch. Later I made my way to the Urban Renewal Authority building where two different exhibits were on display. A long-range city planning exhibit dominated most of the first floor. Many neighborhoods were featured with future proposed infrastructure, recreations, and transportation improvements. Residents were encouraged to leave their input and comments on these proposals. Docents were also available to answer questions about the exhibit. Upstairs has a history of the city and how it works. With the lack of natural resources, Singapore is dependent on other countries for food, water, electricity, and etc. The goal is to decrease that dependence by employing technology and utilizing their strengths. A little later I took the MRT from the Maxwell Station to the Art and Science Museum. I enjoyed an exhibit called Journey into the Mind. The exhibits had 8 different rooms where you could learn how experiences shape our mind. Later in the evening I returned to the Lau Pa Sat Hawker Center in Satay Street. This is a very popular nighttime hangout and it is hard to find a seat. After over 30 minutes I finally got my order of beef, shrimp, and lamb satay. It was definitely worth the wait. Here's a brief look inside. Marianne told me the construction workers are off on Sundays and enjoy time in the park and out with their friends and family. I took a bus ride to the old Airport Road Hawker Food Center for some roast duck noodle soup. I found the bus a great way to see different parts of the city. It runs often, air-conditioned, inexpensive and convenient. Later in the day, Shibu greeted me upon my return home. Today is July 7th and I explored Haji Lane, which is located near the Sultan Mosque and Arab Street. This is a narrow street filled with restaurants, bars, boutiques, and colorful wall murals. Soon I discovered an Art Deco building in Parkview Square with outdoor sculptures by Salvador Dali and other notable artists. Inside is an Art Deco Atlas bar and restaurant. Close by is the Bugis neighborhood, which is popular for its shopping mall, street market and restaurants. Later I continued my bus ride to the ABC Brickworks Hawker Food Center for a cup of coffee before returning back to the house for a dip in the jacuzzi. This morning I rode the number 59 bus from Eunos to Pulau Ubin Island. At the Changi terminal, boats will not depart until they have 10 to 12 riders. To enjoy the island at my own pace, I reserved a bike rental through Klook. Soon I stopped to watch an Asian otter looking for food on the beach and enjoy some fresh fruit I brought from home. The morning was rainy and humid. The island is full of fruits, vegetables, plants, hiking and biking trails, and an education center. To escape the afternoon heat I headed to the Paya Lebar Shopping Center and Food Hawkers Center, which is one MRT stop from Eunos. There I enjoyed a late afternoon lunch and dessert before heading back to the house. Today is July 9th and I took 2 buses to get to the Henderson Waves Bridge. In addition to the panoramic views of the city and harbor, the 274-meter-long bridge is a southern ridge connecting point to 2 parks. The unique structure of the bridge has some alcoves and undulating curves for you to sit out of the sun and to enjoy the scenery from above. I explored the Telok Blangah Hill Park, which had some comfortable shady places to escape the afternoon sun. Later I found a bus stop and rode the air-conditioned bus to Paya Lebar for a late afternoon lunch before heading home for a dip in the pool. Today is July 10th and my trip to Southeast Asia is coming to an end. I returned to Vivo City one more time to try a Chinese restaurant I saw last time. There are many tempting items on display from dim sum, noodles, roasted meats, and the like. I ended up ordering a combo meal of duck, wonton soup, rice, and vegetables. A wonderful lunch before taking the 1-hour bus ride back to Eunos. It is July 11th and my last full day in Singapore. I was on my way to the Zam Zam restaurant, recommended by Denise. It has been in operation since 1908. I had curry mutton biryani for lunch. Soon I took a walk along the river before heading back to Eunos via Paya Lebar, to wash clothes, pack, play with Shibu, and to clean the house. My time in Singapore and Southeast Asia was extremely memorable. I learned a lot about the Vietnamese, Hindu, Muslim, Peranakan, Singaporean, and Chinese cultures. The people are very friendly, respectful, and live and work so cohesively. In Malaysia, the call to prayer was heard over the loudspeaker throughout the city 5 times a day. In Singapore, it is only heard on Friday and in only a few mosques to show respect for the other religions. Government housing projects have come a long way in Singapore since 1965. The ones I visited always looked vibrant with shops, food hawker centers, bus stops or metro close by, nail and hair salons, and other personal care services, incorporated into each housing project. On one of my walking tours, my guide tells a story about how poor the living conditions were back in the British colonial days. Big windows of each shop house was the only source of light in a living space that housed 50 people, with a low thin wall that separated the room. The squat toilet was next to the kitchen. You would be fined by the British for not flushing the toilet. The origin of fines came from these terrible conditions. Today there are a lot of signs in Singapore warning people of fines for this and that. The guide shared information about Chinese culture and we went into the Fullerton Hotel, one of the fanciest and historic hotels in Singapore. A wedding reception was taking place, and the guide told us the fancier the hotel, the larger the amount of money is in the red envelopes. The amount also needs to end in 8. The Chinese lunar calendar for August is the 7th month. He said it represents Halloween and people do not travel in August. It was thought that Singapore first existed in 1299, and people from China, India, and the Middle East settled here as trading merchants and the like. Singapore was a state of Malaysia from 1963 to 1965 before it gained its own independence. I felt so fortunate to have been in Singapore to pre-celebrate their 60-year anniversary of independence. With those thoughts, it is time to depart Singapore on a 14.5-hour direct flight to Seattle, Washington, where I will immediately be pet sitting for 1 week for Pat, who lives in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. Thanks for watching.